Hello, and welcome back to another Python for Beginners YouTube tutorial. I'm Harry Norton, this is Harry Does Data, and I make data science videos here on YouTube. Today, we're going to be taking a look at variables. A Python variable is essentially a reserved memory location to store values. So, we can store all of the different data types we spoke about previously within a variable. This then allows us to access the data later, perform operations on that data, and store the results of those operations in a new variable. To declare a variable in Python, you simply have to give that variable a name and then pass it a piece of data to store using the equal sign. For example, you might have a variable x and store the value 12 in it, and this is an integer value. And you could also have variables which store any of the data types that we spoke about in a previous tutorial. So you might have a name variable which stores a string value Harry. You might have an age variable which stores a integer value of 24. You might have a weight variable, which stores a float value of 85.6. And you might have a Boolean value, a variable named knows variables. And maybe at the moment that's equal to false, but hopefully by the end of this tutorial, that will change to true. So now if we were to run this program by going up to run and run module or clicking F5, then we'll see that I've made a little error already, so I missed out my equals sign up here. So now let's just try running that again. And you'll see that the program runs, but we're not returning anything, because all we've done is we've assigned these values to the variables, but then we haven't done anything with them. So how do we access a variable? To access the data stored within a variable, it's very simple. We just need to use the variable name in our code. So for instance, we could go back to our print statement, and we could give the name of a variable to our print statement. So we might print name. And now if we run our program, then you'll see that what returned to the screen is the value that is stored within the variable name. So it returns Harry. Just as another example, we could change this in here now to age. And if we run again, then it should print 24 to the screen. There we go. We can also use the value of a variable in an operation and then print the result of that operation to the screen. So we could do z is equal to age plus 3. And then we could print z to the screen. So now you'll see that all of these variables are saved. We then do the operation z equals age plus 3, which is of course 24 plus 3 to make 27, and then we print the value z to the screen. Another function that's useful when working with variables is the type function. If we pass the name of our variable to the type function, then that will return to us the data type that is stored within that variable. So we could have type name, and if we run that, then nothing will happen actually, because we need to print that to our screen to be able to see. So we could print type name, and now if we run it, you'll see that we print z, which is 27, and then we print the type of name, which is returned as string. Again, we can just take one of the other ones to see how this works with a different one. So we could have type weight, and that returns us float. Now, if we want to overwrite a variable, we simply need to reassign it. So let's, for instance, take age up here and reassign it as age plus 3. We could then print age here, and we'll print age beforehand just to see what's going on. So now if we run this, you'll see that originally age is defined as 24. We then print age, which is returned to us as 24. Age is reassigned as age plus 3, which would be, of course, be 27. So when we then print age again, it's now 27. Maybe now's a good time to reassign our knows variables variable as true, and then print that. And you'll see that that was originally defined as false, but then we update the value to true and print it. There are certain rules and conventions that are used when naming variables. Firstly, a variable can be made up of letters, numbers, and underscores. So you could have my variable is equal to 1. You could have my variable is equal to 1. You could have my underscore variable is equal to 1. You could have var1 is equal to 1. And any of these would be acceptable. It is important to note that variable names are case sensitive. So this my var that's capitalized is a different variable to my var. To illustrate this, we could change the value of this to 2. And then print both of these variables. So we could print my var, and then afterwards print my var. And if we run that now, you'll see that the first one is printed as 1 and the second one is 2. So these are two different variables. Whilst variables can contain letters, numbers and underscores, they cannot start with a number. So if we were to start this with a number 1 as 1 var and then try and run our program, then you'll see that we return an error. And it says invalid syntax and highlights over here where the error is. You also can't use any other characters within a variable name. So for instance, let's just change this to an and sign, and if we run that again, then a very similar error. Finally, you can't use any Python keywords, which are words that are reserved for a specific use in Python. So for instance, the Boolean value true is one of these, so we could not use the name true as a variable name. Again, we'll get an error if we do that. And we also could not use a value such as del, which is a delete statement that we'll look at later on. We get the same error. So that's most of the basic naming conventions. Variable names should make it obvious and easy to read what that variable is, but you should also try to keep them short. So for now, we'll generally name our values in lowercase and use underscores to separate the words. But naming conventions and Python syntax conventions is a huge topic, but as a beginner, it's really not our priority, so just remember to try and make it so that your code is always as readable as possible. So that's it for the variables tutorial. If you found it useful, please don't forget to give this video a like and subscribe to Harry Does Data so that you don't miss out on more great data science content.